So, I thought we'd just talk a little bit about HMS Nubian and how to research her background, because a bit like Herbert's, there's very little written about Nubian herself. So, had to delve into a number of different books to determine what she was up to, because she's sort of in the shadow of ships like HMS Kelly under Lord Louis Mountbatten and HMS Jervis under Captain Philip Mack. So I started off with a book that really, if anybody's interested in tribal class destroyers, you need to get hold of this. It's The Tribals by Martin Bryce. And this gives you an overview of each individual tribal class destroyer and what they did in a chapter. So it's a broad outline of each ship's career, and obviously Nubian features in this alongside her sister ship HMS Mohawk. Both of them, their careers were pretty well intertwined. And naively I thought, wow, this is the only book I'm going to need. But it was far from the truth. I needed an awful lot more to write Hearts of Steel. So The Tribals is a good one. For life aboard a tribal class destroyer, I found Lower Deck by John Davies, Royal Navy Reserve. This gives life aboard HMS Seek, and it tells the tale of the guys who were the gun crew of B turret on Seek and their operations. Fantastic descriptions of operations in the Mediterranean in what is a very slimline book, written I think it was written in 1945. Yeah, so it's a great reference work. Couldn't take loads out of it, but gives you a good background of life aboard a tribal destroyer. As I just said, HMS Jervis was a major force in the Eastern Med, and Mediterranean Maelstrom by G.G. Connell. This book tells the life of HMS Jervis, but what it also for me gave was an insight into Captain Philip Mack, who became Rear Admiral during the Second World War, and is quite often people don't know about him, but he was a very charismatic and capable destroyer leader. And when he wasn't aboard Jervis, so if Jervis was being in for repairs or whatever, then he would be aboard Nubian. He and his staff would command Destroyer Flotilla 14 from Nubian. That would mean that Captain Ravenhill, who was in charge of Nubian, was still in command of the ship, but he was still underneath Captain Philip Mack. And so that gave me two things. Mediterranean Maelstrom tells me not only where Jervis was, but then obviously where Nubian was and what she was up to most of the time, and some insight into Commander Captain Philip Mack. And his story is almost equally as important as Herbert's in many respects, because he was a very fine officer. So Mediterranean Maelstrom, that was a good reference book. As far as the ship itself is concerned, and its build, and for any tribal class destroyer, this is Destroyer Cossack. It's written by John Roberts and draws upon the technical diagrams of a tribal class destroyer, HMS Cossack. But all of them were pretty much, they were pretty much built the same and of the same design. So this is really useful for really getting into understanding the layout of the ship. If you buy it, it is a bit of a geek's book in some respect, but it is brilliant for understanding the ship itself. You'll need a magnifying glass though, because some of the diagrams are very, very small. And there are some diagrams of Nubian in there. There's some of her wireless station. So that was a great book for getting into that. As far as captains and the like, Rear Admiral Pugsley is a good one to read. Destroyer Man. My favourite though was Destroyer Captain by Roger Hill. Now this was from 42 to 45. He does make some big references to Captain Mack in here as well, but that was a fantastic insight into what it was like to be aboard a destroyer and from a captain's point of view, and the stresses involved in command. And he really did. He ended up with a nervous breakdown, this guy, because the stress that these chaps were under, not just the captains but all the crew, was immense at the time. They were constantly being attacked from the air, certainly in the Mediterranean, and they feared for their lives every day. Which leads me nicely on to a book by Lord Moran. Lord Moran became Churchill's physician, and he was in the First World War, and he wrote a book called The Anatomy of Courage. And The Anatomy of Courage is all about what makes up that thing, courage, and how people deal with fear and the thought of death in combat, and it's an incredible book. And what is really important in this is that Surgeon Commander McDowell, he joined Nubian, and he wrote a paper about fear and courage in the ships, that was used as a paper that was referred to by the fleet in the Eastern Mediterranean Fleet, and his words are in here as well. So he was aboard Nubian, he was a surgeon aboard Nubian, and so it was another great link to that wonderful ship. So there's a few more of the books that I've used during the writing of Hearts of Steel.